What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we're taking a deep dive into all of the ranged classes and their skill trees in Wonderlands. So we're going to talk about things like class strengths, what makes each class unique, and who that class might be best suited for. So in my next video, we're going to talk about the ultimate character and how to create them, and also we're going to jump into things like multi-classing and how that really works. So let's go ahead and get this video started with a classic spell slinger, the Spellshot. So this class loves to weave together bullets and magic to pretty much take down anything that stands in their way. Now, they have some strong abilities that you've seen from other kind of mage classes, right? The classics. Things like meteors, frostbolt, even polymorph to transform bad guys into livestock. Now, the Spellshot comes with a class feat called Spell Weaving, and this gives the Spellshot a stack of spell weaving whenever they cast a spell or reload their weapon. Now, spell weaving is going to increase your spell damage, and if you cast a repeating spell, you have a chance to get bonus stacks. Now, for the two damage skills, we have Spellshot and Ambidextrous, and this is going to allow Spellshots to equip a spell into their action skill slot, which gives huge flexibility when it comes to choosing your loadout because you have an additional spell that you can cast, but you'll have to sacrifice an action skill. Now, their other skill is called Polymorph, and this is going to turn enemies into skeep. Now, if you try to transform an enemy who is immune, instead you're going to get a free spell cast and gain 2 stacks of spell weaving. And if another player damages the skeep, they have a chance to get a free spell cast as well. So you can kind of see the trend here, right? If you're a huge fan of like mages or like wizards, then this class is going to be one that you really need to look into because there's going to be a lot in there that I think you'll really like. So now that we've talked about skills and feats, let's break down the skill tree. So first up is tier 1. Now, tier 1 is typically a foundational tier, I'll say. They provide some small bonuses. Tier 2 nodes are typically a little bit more complex, and you can start adding the building blocks for your class identity. Then tier 3 is usually when things build that complexity up a little bit more. Tier 4 is when things get really kind of build defining. Tier 5 continues to build on that build identity and really lets you kind of round out what you're truly trying to shoot for. And then your last tier is your capstone node. And these are typically a huge kind of monumental, ultimate skill, ultimate passive type of thing that really give your class some identity and something to build around. So now that you know how skill trees are set up, let's talk about what the Spellshot brings to the table. So like I said, first up is tier 1. These are foundational and they provide those small bonuses. So we have Spell Sniper, which increases your spell crit hit chance. You have Magic Bullets, which give a portion of all spell damage bonus to your guns. And then we have Prestidigitation, which is a super long word, basically just to increase your reload speed. Now, next up, we have tier 2. We have Font of Mana, which increases your spell and skill cooldown rate. We have Mage Armor, so whenever you gain a stack of spell weaving, you restore a portion of your ward, which is your shield in this game. Then we have Just Warming Up, which increases your fire rate for every spell weaving stack. In terms of tier 3, we only have one node, and that's Glass Cannon. So Glass Cannon causes your ward, which is your shield, to no longer recharge, but you gain a big increase to spell damage. And guys, I love this node. I feel like this would work really well with like the Graveborn's playstyle, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but this is something that I really like. Now moving into tier 4, we have 3 more nodes. We have Imbued Weapon, which causes your guns to deal bonus damage whenever you cast a spell. We have High Thread Count, which increases your spell weaving stacks. And then we have Warcaster, and this is our first kill skill. So whenever you kill an enemy, there's a chance your gun is instantly reloaded. And these are fairly straightforward skills, but I think High Thread Count is really going to bring a lot to the table because you want to get as many of those spell weaving stacks as possible. That way you can increase your spell damage as high as possible. Now, tier 5 brings us 2 nodes that kind of build on the synergy between guns and spells. We have Double Knot, and that's whenever you score a critical hit with a spell, you deal bonus damage. Then we have One Shot, One Kill, which increases your gun damage per spell weaving stack. So again, maximizing those spell weaving stacks are going to give you even more gun damage and more spell damage. And then our last tier is our capstone node called Sever the Thread. Now, this gives gun critical hits a chance to instantly reset all of your spell cooldowns, which is just crazy to think about. You know, you cast all your spells, you're sitting there watching them kind of cool down and reload, and then next thing you know, boom, you pop off a gun critical hit and they're right back at it and you can cast them again. It's almost basically like a built-in double cast, and I really love to see it. So one of the things about the Spellshot that I really like is how much synergy this class has between gun damage and spell casts. It really helps kind of sell that sort of like battle mage playstyle that I know other players like me will also like. Now, to me, it sounds like this is the perfect fit for anybody who loves any sort of magic build, like any level of magic build. If you like low fantasy gunslinger that, you know, has kind of dabbled in magic on the side, this is for you. If you like a full-blown arcane mage, this is also for you. So that's the Spellshot, but let's go ahead and keep this video moving along, and let's talk about another incredibly strong ranged class, but this one is much less flashy than the Spellshot, and that's the Spore Warden. So the Spore Warden is all about nature and harnessing the power of nature to destroy everything around them. And just like the Stabomancer, they are not afraid to launch some projectiles and then weave some spell work in there too. So their class feat is their Mushroom Companion. Now this little fella loves to spit acid and get into melee range to chop things up. Plus any increases to your damage will boost theirs too. Now getting into their skills, the Spore Warden has Barrage and Blizzard. Now, Barrage is going to summon an ethereal bow and then unleash 7 arcane arrows that deal ability damage on impact. Now, these arrows will also ricochet twice to nearby enemies, and if that doesn't sound cool enough, this skill also has multiple charges. Now, the other skill, Blizzard, looks like it's going to have some awesome synergy to multi-class with the Berserker. And that's because this skill will create 3 Frost Cyclones for a duration that'll seek out nearby enemies and inflict frost damage. And if you remember, a ton of the Berserker's nodes actually increase frost damage and let you take advantage of frozen enemies. So keep that in mind when we move into next week's video. And so now that we have the feats and the skills locked down, let's talk about that passive skill tree. So for tier 1, we have Bounty of the Hunt. Now this is a kill skill, so whenever you kill an enemy, your action skill cooldown is increased. We have Kindred Heart, which increases your companion health and damage. Then we have Eagle Eye, which increases your gun and gun handling. Then we have tier 2, which is going to bring a few more simple ones into the mix, but also give our pet another skill. We have Affinity, which increases your ability damage. We have Spore Cloud, which causes your mushroom pet to fart, which will taunt nearby enemies and leave behind a poison cloud. And lastly, we have Bullseye, which increases your critical hit chance for both your guns and your companion. Now, tier 3 is where things get a little bit more interesting. So we have Quiver of Holding. This increases your magazine size and regenerates ammo over time. So this is perfect for those heavy hitting weapons that really don't let you carry like a ton of ammo, like a rocket launcher, for example. Then we have Medicinal Mushroom, which will allow your pet to revive you when you're in Save Your Soul mode. So this is perfect for those solo players. And if they're successful, then you both gain increased damage for a duration. And then last up, we have Windrunner, which is another kill skill. Now this one is going to increase your movement speed and fire rate for a duration, plus it can stack. So overall, tier 3 is where the Spore Warden is finally getting some of those cool passives that really kind of seem like they would be worthwhile to multi-class with another character. So moving into tier 4, we have 2 nodes to invest into, Thrill of the Hunt and Called Shot. So for Thrill of the Hunt, this causes your gun critical hits to increase your pet's damage for a duration, and it can stack up to 10 times. Then we have Called Shot. This one is interesting. Okay, so it infinitely scales your gun damage and damage reduction while aiming down the sights. So like I said, it's very interesting because we don't know if this is like 0.25% per second or 1% per second. So more testing is definitely going to need to be done to see exactly how powerful this node is. Now in terms of tier 5, we have 2 nodes, Wrath of Nature and Headhunter. For Wrath of Nature, this is going to place a debuff on your target whenever you use ability damage. And this is going to cause that target to take increased damage from all other sources, which I really like. I think that has a ton of synergy. And then for Headhunter, this one is plain and simple. You're going to increase the amount of damage your guns do to critical hit areas. And our very last node is our capstone called Play the Angles. This causes your gun critical hits to have a chance to ricochet, dealing ability damage, which then causes those shots to have a chance to ricochet again. So as you can see, this class just piles on tons of gun buffs that really give you some incentive to keep your distance and kind of avoid getting into melee range too much. You can definitely take advantage of ricocheted bullets to deal ability damage, which will then proc Wrath of Nature, which then increases the damage that all your targets take. So I'm really liking how this one is shaping up, but we do have one class to get into still. So our last class is one that capitalizes on high risk, high reward, and that's the Graveborn. So these are deathly acolytes who sacrifice health in order to deal incredibly powerful dark magic attacks. Plus, they come with their very own undead pet. Now, the cool thing about the Graveborn is how rewarding it seems that it can be if you play it correctly. You have a lot of kill skills, you have a lot of spells, you have a lot of pet increases, and all of this helps improve your overall damage and proc some effects to bring this whole class together. Now, the feat for Graveborn is their Lich Pet. This guy is going to cast spells whenever you do, which will help clear out enemies and buff up your killing efficiency. Now, the two skills for the Graveborn are Dire Sacrifice and Reaper of Bones. So Dire Sacrifice is going to cause you to sacrifice some health to deal dark magic damage and then apply dark magic status effects to all enemies nearby. And then for Reaper of Bones, this one is a self buff and it's very interesting. So you're going to fully heal yourself, you're going to get increased leech, and then you're going to deal bonus dark magic damage, but you're going to lose health every second. And if you would die during this buff, you would instead become invulnerable for a short duration, restore some health, and then the effect ends. So this one sounds really interesting because you can combo a lot of stuff with it, and I think there's going to be a lot of synergy that people are going to use Reaper of Bones with, especially if you multi-class it with something else, because you're going to have access to that skill as well. So those are the feats and skills. Let's get into those nodes. So tier 1 gives us a few simple ones. We have Mortal Vessel, which increases your maximum health and your leech efficiency. We have Essence Drain, which is a killing skill that increases your spell cooldown rate. And then we have Faithful Thralls, which causes you to deal bonus damage for every pet that you have. So if you multi-class with Clawbringer or the Spore Warden, this will also affect this node. Tier 2 gives us another kill skill and some health restoration. So we have Sanguine Sacrament, which restores some health whenever you cast a spell. We have Dark Pact, which increases your dark magic damage. And lastly, we have Harvest, which is another kill skill that causes your pet to deal bonus dark magic damage. And this one can stack, so you can continue to get increased damage over time, which I absolutely love. Now, tier 3 has an interesting one called Dread Covenant. So this causes a portion of the damage that you take to be redirected to your pet. And then once you reach 1% health, your pet is sacrificed and you restore all of that health. So pretty straightforward, kind of just a survivability thing, but still it's pretty interesting. Then we have Stain of the Soul, which causes your spells to deal bonus dark magic damage. And lastly, Dark Hydra, and I really like this one. This is a kill skill that gives you a chance to summon a Dark Hydra pet that'll deal dark magic ability damage to nearby enemies. And honestly, guys, any skills that like summon an extra pet are just top notch in my mind. Absolutely love those, and I cannot wait to build around it. For tier 4, we just have two nodes. Ascension, which is another killing skill. Now this one increases your maximum health and your spell damage for a very long duration, and this also stacks, so another self buff. Then we have Punishment. This gives your Lich Pet a chance to double cast its spells. Plain and simple, more damage, more DPS. In terms of tier 5, we have another two nodes. We have the Lord of Edges, aka the Edgelord node. I'm so glad they decided to name one of these after Edgelord. Now this causes you to deal extra damage dealt and reduces damage taken the lower you are on health. And this is going to play really well with Reaper of Bones, since it just naturally drains your health in exchange for a damage buff. Both these stack, that's a ton of extra damage coming your direction. Then we have Blast Gasp. So whenever you deal spell damage, there's a chance to create an explosion dealing ability damage. And our last node is the capstone called Morhaim's Blessing, and it is absolutely insane. So casting a spell will automatically activate all of your kill skills just by casting it. So let's break this thing down. So if you cast this, you're going to get Ascension, which will give you increased health and spell damage, a Dark Hydra, so you're going to summon another pet, Harvest, which will cause your pets to deal extra damage, and Essence Drain, which increases your cooldown rate. And this is just crazy to see. And this just doesn't affect the Graveborn tree, because if you multi-class, you're going to proc those kill skills as well. So everyone, those are your 3 range classes, your skill trees, feats, all your skills. So which one are you leaning towards? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want more Wonderlands content, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
masterly handed.